Hola, it's Beto here, your daily divinity coach, here for episode 21 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. I'm just going to go ahead and fix the camera here so that you can see things properly behind me. So just give me a second here. Oh, I fixed this. Just got to turn the... Oh. There we go. Now you can see behind me. So I wanted to make sure I fixed that, and I'm just going to tag a couple of friends here, and yeah, all right, so we're looking good. So let me just fix this a little bit, excuse me, there we go. So again, it's Beto here, your daily divinity coach, here for episode number 21 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. I'm just going to go ahead and move this up a little bit. For some reason, I didn't get that right. There, much better. So we're just going to wait a minute or so for some people to join. If you're watching the recorded video, go ahead and fast forward a couple minutes because we're going to go ahead and let some people join live here on Sunday, November 8th, and then we'll get started with the content of the material. So go ahead and fast forward a couple minutes and we'll go get started in a minute. If you haven't watched, and that's if you've watched a recorded video before. If you haven't, stick around because I'm going to give it an introduction and you're going to want to hear that. But again, it's Beto here, your daily divinity coach, here for episode number 21 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. Episode number 21 is entitled Generation X, the Prison Industrial Complex, and the Call to Manifest Immortality. Today is Sunday, November 8th, 2020, and a lot's happened in the last 24 hours, especially here in the U.S. with the we have a new president-elect, right? Joe Biden is the new president-elect of the U.S., and I know a lot of people were out celebrating last night that victory. But anyhow, yeah, we're here. We're here for episode number 21, Generation X, the Prison Industrial Complex, and the Call to Manifest Immortality. Sunday, November 8th, 2020, here on Facebook Live. And I'm your Beto, your daily divinity coach, and really excited about this episode. So we're, again, waiting for some people to join. While we do that, I can just go ahead and give a brief introduction. If you're watching the recorded video, go ahead and forward a couple minutes. But for those of you who haven't heard my introduction before, if you haven't seen an episode before, please don't forward so you can hear my introduction. So again, I'm your Beto, your daily divinity coach. Three things about me. Number one, I am a Master of Divinity, and I'm a Harvard University Divinity School graduate. So yes, I hold my Master of Divinity degree. I am a pluralist, so I teach all, people from all faiths, all nations, and no faith. I teach all. And as a result, I use inclusive language. So I use language like the divine, right, where others might use Allah, or God, or the universe, or the Great Spirit. I use the divine. I also use the Great Teacher, another example of inclusive language. I have no sponsor. I'm blessed with a day job, very blessed and happy, grateful, joyful, with a good day job. So I have no sponsor. I have no religious organization that sponsors me. I have no corporation that sponsors me. I sponsor everything myself. And so what do I do on social media? Number one, I do about a paragraph every day called Daily Divinity Coaching that I post on social media, including Facebook, but also Instagram. I put it on Twitter, I put it on LinkedIn. And it's about a paragraph. I send that up every day, just a written paragraph. And then every week I'm here for Sunday Weekly Revival. Every Sunday I do this live show on Facebook Live starting at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for about 30 minutes. And before I'm on Facebook Live, I'm on Instagram Live. So I actually do this show first on Instagram Live starting at 8 a.m. Pacific Time and 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then I flip over and I do it again. A repeat performance for Facebook Live. And I do that every Sunday with the exception of the first Sunday of the month. The first Sunday of the month, I do my monthly mailbag. So last week was the first Sunday of November, Sunday, November 1st. I did my monthly mailbag, number 1. It was my very first episode, and I'll be doing that the first Sunday of every month going forward. My monthly mailbag, I take pre-submitted questions. So you all send me your questions via IM, DM, text, however, but please not here on these comments, because sometimes the comments are lost. But you send me your pre-submitted questions, and I provide thoughtful answers on my monthly mailbag. And it's a lot of fun, and we had a lot of people view the first episode of my monthly mailbag last week. So that's what I do on social media. And then 3 things I give away for free through the end of the year. Number 1, I do free one-on-one divinity coaching, up to 45 minutes. I give free of my time. So if you have any questions about the content of my shows or my posts, or things that came up on my monthly mailbag, we can talk about those. Again, free 45 minutes. I also do free scientific prayer. So if you'd like me to offer up a prayer for you, you have a prayer request, DM me, IM me, text me, call me, and I'll go ahead and do that for you. Happy to do that for you. And I also give away bracelets. So I give away these sets of Manifest bracelets. So if you can see here, there's a gray bracelet that reads Manifest Justice. There's also a blue one that reads Manifest Abundance, and a black one that reads Manifest Immortality. So I give these away. I call them my sets of Manifest bracelets for free. And if you're within North America or Europe till the end of the year, before it used to be the U.S., but I made this exception because of COVID and pandemic, everything everybody's going through. So till the end of the year, if you're within Europe or North America, I'll also ship those bracelets for free. So free bracelets, free shipping. If you don't already have your set, reach out, IM, DM, text, call, and more than happy to get those bracelets out to you. It's a pleasure. And again, I'm sponsoring it, so there's no sponsor behind it. So that's about me. And so we're going to go ahead and get started with the content of today's episode. Again, episode number 21, Generation X, the prison industrial complex, and the call to manifest immortality. Today is Sunday, November 8th, 2020. So we're going to go ahead and talk. We're going to actually start with an introduction. So, as I said earlier at the beginning, we have a new president-elect in the U.S. So I was actually in Harvard Square. I'm originally from California, but I came out to Boston for graduate school, and I was here just down the street. I live in Cambridge, just right across the Charles River from Boston. And I was in Harvard Square when the announcement was made that we have a new president-elect. And, right away people started cheering, and, my phone started blowing up with text messages. And as I was down there for a few hours. More and more people were coming, like happy, excited, celebrating. It became so busy down there that they ended up, I believe, closing off the streets because traffic became crazy. People were honking. They closed off the streets. People were celebrating on the streets. Went on through the night. I think we have a curfew here in Massachusetts, so probably went on until 9:30 till curfew. I'm not sure. I didn't stay out that late, but people were excited, right? People were excited. The incumbent lost, and so which takes the introduction to me. So people have asked, Beto, who are you voting for, or who did you vote for? Honestly, I don't feel like I voted for any. I don't feel like I voted for somebody. I felt like I voted against somebody. I voted against the incumbent. I mean, that's what I did, and that's how I feel. It wasn't like 2008. In 2008, I voted for somebody, right? I was in a swing state. I was living in Nevada at the time. It was a swing state, a purple state, right? We didn't know which way it was going to go. And so I canvassed. I helped quake the streets, or, canvass, walk the streets, quake the streets, talk to people for the Obama campaign. My ex, she worked the phones, right, for the Obama campaign. And when we went to vote in 2008, we took our 3-year-old son with us to the polls, right? It's historic, right? We're going to vote for, hopefully, the United States' first African-American president. And he won, right? He won. And I was excited. I voted for him, right? The first African-American president of the U.S. Broke through. It was exciting. It was unbelievable. So in 2008, I was excited. I felt like I voted for somebody. This time I was excited because I voted against the incumbent who lost, but it was kind of bittersweet. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the episode. What else happened this week? Well, Mr. D, so I have a workout partner. Mr. D had his first reverse birthday. It was exciting. So it was the day after the election. It was on Wednesday, and Mr. D comes. Mr. D and I work out 2 hours every morning. And so Mr. D comes in to where we work out. And even when there was a lockdown, we were working out outside at the park, but now we work out inside. And Mr. D comes in and he says, Albert, Beto, it's my first reverse birthday. And I'm like, all right, right? And he said, I'm 69 again, right? 2 times. I'm 69 again. I'm going backward. I said, all right. I said, tomorrow you're going to be 68 years, 364 days because you're getting younger every day. And so it was fun, right? We talked about that. And I said, you know what your birthday gift is? He said, what? He said, your birthday gift is this. I said, a 3-minute plank. So traditionally at the end of our 2-hour workout, we do a boxer's workout. At the end of the 2-hour workout, we traditionally do a 2-minute plank. I said, because you're younger, we're going to do a 3-minute plank. And so now every day we do a 3-minute plank. So that was a lot of fun, and we did it. And Mr. D's getting younger every day. It was awesome. It was a blast. So personal relationships. So part of the title of today's episode is the prison industrial complex. So this is personal to me. We're going to call him Mr. T or Primo T. So I have a cousin, and he spent, most, not all, because there's a little bit of in and out, but most of his young adult life in prison. And this is an individual who is very handsome, right? Charming, smart, spoke 2 languages, still does. I mean, he's still around. Speaks 2 languages. Good boxer. I mean, he had a lot going for him, right? And but he got caught up, and he spent the better part of his young adult life in prison. Let's call him Mr. F, Student F. He was when I got done with college, my very first job was teaching high school in an inner city high school, and one of my very first classes, my first semester teaching, I met Mr. F or Student F, and again, here's somebody who is athletic, right? The girls liked him. He was, he had charm. He was smart. He had a lot going for him, talent, and he spent all of his young adult life caught up in the prison industrial complex. So, this episode is personal to me. Not only that, but I volunteered. I was an assistant prison chaplain. That was my volunteer work. I would go into the prisons and work with young people and talk. And I was young at the time myself. I was fresh out of college, and so when Mr. F was in there, I'd go in and visit with him and the other young people in there. And Mr. F would say, he called me Mr. H. That's Mr. H. He's real. He's my teacher. Now he's coming in here and helping us out and all that. So again, this is an episode for my heart. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this, and we'll get on past the introduction. We're going to start with Generation X. Generation X. So if you're born between, like me, well, the government says, born between 1965 and 1980, you're part of Generation X. You're part of a generation of approximately 65 million people here in the U.S. That's compared to the baby boomers, the generation before us, which is comprised of approximately 75 million. And the generation after us, the millennials, that make up approximately 83 million. So we're 10 million smaller than the baby boomers and 18 million smaller than the millennials. So we're sandwiched, right? We're the sandwiched generation between these 2 big generations, right? The baby boomers and millennials. So I went to do my research for this episode. I went online to see, what do people say about us? What do they say about the generation, right? The Generation X. It's kind of dark, honestly. They call us the lost generation. We're lost generation. They call us the latchkey generation, right? We're the kids who grew up with lack of adult supervision after school. We're the MTV generation, right? Which they didn't say in a positive way. They're saying it as though we were raised, without adult supervision while watching TV after school. So not a lot of positives about our generation when you do a Google search, at least not at the beginning. You got to really dig. So I said, okay, well, let's flip it. Let's look at pop culture, right? I started looking at books, and I noticed that a few of the books, right, that are attributed to the Generation X, my generation, were turned into movies. And so I highlighted a couple of them. And they're dark. These are a couple of dark books that turned into dark movies, right, in the 80s. One of them was, if you've seen the movie, Bright Lights, Big City. Again, Bright Lights, Big City, a 1988 Hollywood film starring Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox in the 80s was the TV star. He was on the sitcom, situation comedy, Family Ties, right? He was this button-down Republican kid, right? Reagan kid, and anyhow, now he's starring in this movie, and honestly, he just didn't sell it to me, but he's all of a sudden, he's in this movie, Bright Lights, Big City, and he's like this editor in New York City, and he's a young guy in his late 20s, and he has a young wife who ends up leaving him, and he loses his job. He's struggling with a cocaine addiction, and he's hanging out in nightclubs in New York City, and I don't know, it's just dark. I wasn't into it. But that book and that movie is attributed to our generation, right? Less Than Zero, another 1988 film, a movie turned into, or based on a movie. Less Than Zero, 1988, starring Robert Downey Jr. Young man, right? Fresh out of, recently out of high school, right? His buddies are in college. He didn't go to college. Instead, he gets hooked on heroin, right? So much so that, he gets in debt. He ends up with a pimp. I mean, just dark stuff, right? Situated in LA. At the end of the movie, he ends up dying of a heart attack. I mean, young, right? He's like really young. Best friends in college. Anyway, dark, right? This attributed to the generation, right? Generation X. So I said, okay, I got to stop looking at this stuff. Let me look at rock stars, right? Who are rock stars? Who do they look at, right, when they look at Generation X rock stars? First one that pops up, Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain, born 1967, right? I'm going to go ahead and flip this. You can see Kurt Cobain, 1967 to 1994. Lead singer of Nirvana, right? Leader of the grunge movement, right? The Seattle Sound, Kurt Cobain. Killed himself, right? Suicide. When they did the toxicology report, he was high on heroin. Dark, right? And if you listen to the words of his music, his song, it's pretty dark. I said, okay, let me see. Hopefully I can come up with something a little lighter. Bradley James Noel. If you're like me, if you're from California, or if you just like California culture, Bradley James Noel, lead singer of Sublime, extremely talented. Could rap in English and Spanish. Sublime with a ska kind of punk reggae band from Long Beach. Incredible talent. Died of a heroin overdose. Born in 68, died in 96. Young man, right? Talented, full of talent. But passed away. So, those are our rock stars, right? And I love Sublime. One of my favorite groups. So I said, okay, well, let me look at, instead of books that turn into movies, let me look at a song that turned into a movie. I said, all right. So I looked at songs that turned into a movie. Boys in the Hood. Did you see this one? I've seen it multiple times. 1991 film, Boys in the Hood, is based on the song by Ice Cube. When Ice Cube wrote the song when he was with NWA, right? Boys in the Hood. Movie was directed by John Singleton. Ice Cube was in it. Cuba Gooding Jr. was in it. He was the star. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s best friend in the movie is a football hero, a high school football star, right? Looking to go on and play at the next level, play for the USC Trojans, right? Play college ball, and ends up getting killed in a drive-by shooting, right? The gangs and all this in LA. I mean, just it was sad. It was a sad ending. So I said, okay, I got to get some light going here. So, what about the rap stars, right? What about the rap stars? First one pops up, as I'm Googling and searching, Tupac Shakur. Love Tupac, right? Oakland's pride of Oakland, California, right? Love Oakland, California. I grew up in the Bay Area. Very fond of the town. Tupac Shakur, born in 1971, passed away in 1996. How? Drive-by shooting, right? Apparently there's some Crips Blood, some sort of, gang thing going on. He was in Las Vegas, right, with Suge Knight. Went out like a gangster, right, right off the Las Vegas Strip, right, Tupac Shakur, right, drive-by shooting. This is Generation X, right? This is the stuff that came up on the Google search. I mean, sad, right? Sad. I mean, he spoke his prophetic voice, right? Tupac was a prophetic voice, very smart, and he said these words here. Instead of war on poverty, they got a war on drugs, so the police can bother me, right? In the 60s, they passed the war on poverty, right? As a nation, we're going to defeat poverty. We're going to take on poverty. Well, what happened to Generation X, right? The baby boomers got that, right? They got a just war. They're going to beat poverty. What did we get? Generation X? We're going to beat drugs. We're going to beat you guys. We're going to lock you guys up, right? We're going to lock up you and your friends, and, that's what we're going to do. We're not going to go after poverty no more. So Tupac came up with those words, very eloquent. So what happened with the war on drugs, right? This is the Reagan, right? Ronald Reagan. 1980 to 1984, this was the first term of Ronald Reagan. The annual budget for the FBI, drug enforcement, went from $8 million to $95 million that first term under President Reagan. Think about that. $8 million to $95 million. Think if you were making $80,000 and all of a sudden your annual salary went from $80,000 to $950,000 a year. I mean, what kind of impact would that make on your life? That's what happened. That's what Reagan did. He put all that money into drug enforcement. Unbelievable. 1986, what did U.S. Congress do? 101 sentencing disparity, right? If you're caught dealing crack versus powder cocaine, right? Crack, inner city, right? Poverty, people, in tough communities, right? With challenges, right? At risk. But if you're dealing crack, you get 100 times worse sentencing than if you get caught dealing cocaine powder, right? Suburban versus inner city. Congress did this. Unbelievable. 1986, let's wrap this war up, right? Forget about the millions. Let's go for the billions now. $1.7 billion in additional funding for the war on drugs. This is our generation, Generation X. This is what was going on, right? As we're coming up, trying to make moves, right? As a generation, trying to finish high school, trying to get college, trying to finish. This was our background, right, to our generation, and they call us lost, right? 1988, John Kerry, Senator of Massachusetts, the John Kerry Report, right? What did it come out with? Members of the U.S. State Department, government officials, right, paid by the government, right, providing support for the Contras, right, in Nicaragua. There's a war going on in Nicaragua. Not officially U.S. sanctioned, but we're backing them, right? He comes out with a report saying that U.S. State Department members in providing support for the Contras are complicit in drug trafficking. This is the backdrop of Generation X, right? They call us, these guys call us the lost generation. I think they were lost, right? 1996, more evidence of the government gone crazy, right? San Jose Mercury News reporter, Gary Webb, right? Came out with Dark Alliance, right? He wrote these articles called The Dark Alliance in the San Jose Mercury News, 1996. Came out right there in 96. CIA, right? All the evidence. The CIA is complicit in drug trafficking, right? Proceeds from drug trafficking into the inner cities, right? Crack cocaine, right? To help fund the Contras, right? In the war in Central America. Unbelievable. This is the backdrop to this generation, to my generation. And they call us lost. And this is why earlier in the episode I said the victory yesterday was bittersweet for me, because I know my history, right? I'm part of Generation X. The 1994 crime bill, right? I have relationships that were caught up in all of this mess. If you haven't already, take a look at the New York Times article. It was written in June 2019, so last summer. This is the title of the episode. Lock the SOBs up. That's the first part of the title. These are the words of Joe Biden, President-elect Joe Biden in '94. Lock the SOBs up. Joe Biden in the era of mass incarceration. Now, Joe Biden helped largely author the 1994 crime bill, right? Ushered that thing through Congress, got it legislated, right? Got it signed. I mean, you know, this is President-elect Joe Biden. Since then, right? Since then, he said it was a mistake, you know, it was the times, right? I just got caught up in the times, right? I got caught up in the times. I'm a different person now. I'm against systemic racism. We're going to make a difference. And but nonetheless, this is historical. This is documented, right? This is what happened. These are the words he said. Lock the SOBs up. And if you, anyway, I don't want to get too deep because I know some of you are still celebrating yesterday, and that's a good thing, right? You know, being there in Harvard Square, I felt like we not only defeated fascism, but we defeated COVID. I mean, for a minute there, I was thinking like, do we get to take the masks off now? And then I realized, no, you know, we got to keep the masks on. But I mean, people are celebrating. You're probably celebrating, so I don't want to get too down on Biden. But you know, he's apologized, and hopefully he's going to make some big changes. But this is history. I mean, this is documented. So what did the crime bill do? What did the '94 crime bill do? Prison funding up $9.7 billion. All right, remember, the baby boomers got to fight poverty with money. What happens to our generation, Generation X? They give money to lock us up, right? They're locking us up, right? Us Americans. 3 strikes law comes out. 3 felonies, you're locked up for life, right? You get caught dealing small amounts, you know, felony, however big the crack cocaine amount is you're dealing 3 times, locked up. As a result, 1993, pre-crime bill, 949,000 inmates, so 51,000 less than a million. What happened in 95, a year after the crime bill was signed? 1.5 million inmates in the U.S., 551,000 more inmates in 1 year, thanks to the 1994 crime bill. I mean, we're already, we have something like a quarter of the inmates in the world are here in the U.S. And we don't make a big percentage of the global population. You know, it's in single figures. It's not that big, but we make almost a quarter of the inmates. Why? It's big business. It is big business. Prisons are big business. Private prison, Core Civic, CCA, if you haven't heard of them. Core Civic, they also go by CCA. They're a publicly traded company. So, if you got money in Wells Fargo, B of A, Vanguard, look at your pension program, look at your people are investing in CCA, this privately held company that's in the business of prisons, of locking up Americans, right? Money, there's big money in this, right? Big money in locking up Generation X, right? Or now millennials, unfortunately, because it's continuing. Although Obama did make big changes, right? He started curbing. The numbers started going down, and then with Trump, they went right back up. As a result, in 2009, this was coined, immigration industrial complex. So not only do we have a prison industrial complex, now we got an immigration industrial complex. Okay? So 2 different things, but they're basically the same, right? So now we got people locked up in prisons, people locked up in immigration detention facilities, right? Which are also prisons. 50% of the 400,000 immigrant detainees are locked up in private facilities, right? Private facilities run by companies like Core Civic, CCA. So how much are these guys making? What are they charging us, right? Because we're the taxpayers. We're paying for this, right? $159 a day, right? They're charging us $159 a day. That's what they're charging ICE. That's what they're charging us. It's our taxpayer dollars. As a result, guess who CCA, guess who's Core Civic's #1 customer is? ICE. That's where they're making their money, right? So not only where we saddled with the prison industrial complex. Now we're saddled with the immigration industrial complex. And this is why it was although I was celebrating, trust me, I was happy, I was relieved yesterday. But this is why it was bittersweet, because there's work to be done. And honestly, this all didn't start with Biden. It started before Biden. It started with Reagan. And even then, Nixon was the one with the vision. Nixon was the one with the vision back in early 70s. And then Reagan took it and made it, legislated it and put money behind it. And then, 94, Biden and Clinton accelerated it. Obama tried to curb it. Trump came in, accelerated it again with the immigration detainee facilities. So, it's bittersweet because, I'm the daily divinity coach, and although I'm excited for the new president-elect that, the incumbent was defeated, we got to hold this guy accountable. He says he's going to make a difference. Let's do it, right? Let's make a difference. Let's hold him accountable. Let's be happy. Let's celebrate the end of whatever the last 4 years were, absurdity. But let's also know there's still work to be done. He's apologized. He said it was a mistake. Let's get this done. Let's turn this thing around. Let's be one America, like he said, right? Not Americans locked up and this and Generation X and this. One America, what he's saying. All right, so now the call. Good news, right? We have the call to manifest immortality. So I'm going to call out my generation. I'm going to call out Generation X, right? The baby boomers, right? As Mr. D would say, the baby boomers will fall in line, right? We'll fall in line. You guys lead this thing. We don't want to saddle this thing, immortality, with our kids, right? The millennials, right? They got remote learning and distance, hybrid, whatever. They got the pandemic and they got enough to deal with, right? Imagine being a kid and dealing with all this stuff. No, this is for us, right? The boomers will fall in line. The millennials are coming up. The call to manifest immortality. I'm putting it in the hands of our generation. And it's simple, guys. I'm not asking for a lot, right? This isn't going to take a lot out of you, right? The call to manifest immortality is not going to take a lot out of you. To flip the currency, really, all you have to do is talk to yourself as good or better than you do your plants, right? You don't tell your plants, oh, you're getting old. You're knocking on death's door. Look at you, you're all withered, right? You look sick. No, because what happens? A plant will die, right? Let's talk to ourselves better, as good or better than we do our plants. Oh, you're looking good. Look at your branches, look at your arms. You're getting younger, you're getting stronger, right? You're like a lobster, right? Talk to yourself like that. Talk to others like that. Talk to others in your circle, your pod, like that, right? You can be like a lobster. You can grow stronger, young. You can get stronger and more agile, as you mature, right? We're getting younger every day. Like I tell Mr. D, every day I tell him, you're getting younger. And he looks at me and he said, you're getting younger too, Bethel. That's how we talk to each other. You're getting stronger, Mr. D. You're getting stronger too, Bethel. You're getting more agile. You're getting more agile. That's how you talk to each other. That's manifesting immortality, right? And remember, you're created to be immortal, right? That's ancient text, right? You're created to be immortal. So we're not asking for a lot, right? Mr. D and I, my co-pilot, aren't asking for a lot. We're asking for this. Not only that, but now's the time, right? The fifth sun's dawning, right? Ancient prophecies telling us now's the time. Okay, this is the number one reason. If I get pushback on any of this, this is the number one pushback. People say, but Bethel, they're going to think I'm crazy, right? And it's always people my generation, right? It's always people from Generation X. Bethel, they're going to think I'm crazy if I do this, if I talk to myself better than a plant, if I say I'm like a lobster, if I claim to be immortal, right? If I talk about the fifth son and the ancient prophecy, they're going to think I'm crazy, right? Well, here's the thing, all right? I'm going to talk truth, right, to my generation right now. Here's the thing. They already think you're crazy. They already think you're crazy. They read Prozac Nation, right? Look at everything we talked about, the war on drugs, the drive-bys. They already think we're nuts. It ain't going to change. As a matter of fact, they think they think I'm more sane now than I was when I was deep in the Generation X, the dark, No, they're not. Who cares? First of all, who cares? And second of all, this is what they're going to say, because they tell it to me. right? Because I was like that. I was like, oh my God, you know, a year and a half ago, you know, calling my best friend Carlos, man, this is what I'm thinking about doing, you know, professing immortality. You know, Beto, are you worried they're going to think you're crazy? Let them. They already think I'm crazy, right? No, that hasn't been the response, especially from the baby boomers. Mr. D, oh my God, tell me more. That's what they're going to say. Tell me more. Why hasn't anybody been talking about this? Why have you waited so long to tell me this information? How do I do it? How do I get younger? How do I manifest immortality? That's going to be the response. And if they do say you're crazy, who cares? They already think you're crazy. Let's get this done, Generation X. We can do this. So I'm going to go ahead and end here. It's been lovely. I'm so grateful for you for watching these episodes, reading my posts. Yeah, I'm grateful. Really, I'm very grateful. I'm happy with the result yesterday, even though I felt like I was voting against something and not for something. Regardless, it was a great day. It was, Ice Cube says, right? It was a good day. If you've been celebrating, continue. Happy and, again, grateful for you for watching these episodes. And may you join again next week here live on Facebook Live. I'm here every Sunday. Be back for episode number 22 next Sunday here on Facebook Live at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you have Instagram, you can catch both shows. I started an Instagram Live a half an hour earlier at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I'm going to go ahead and put on my reading glasses and turn this off and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And again, thanks for being here and hope you can come back next Sunday and join us again. Bye-bye now.